Let me ask you something honest. When did you last think about your financial future and actually feel good about it? Not the, I should really do something about this thought that shows up at 2 a.m. Not the flash of guilt when a coworker casually mentions their 401k balance and you have to nod like you also have thoughts about that. The actual, calm, confident feeling that you're on track. If that feeling is rare or missing entirely, you're not alone. And you're not broken, you're just in your 30s. Your 30s are the decade where the gap between where you are and where you thought you'd be becomes impossible to ignore. You're earning real money now, more than you've ever earned. But somehow, the bank account doesn't feel like it reflects that. The lifestyle grew, the debt stayed. The investing never quite started, or started, stopped, started again, and is currently paused temporarily while you figure things out. And the question underneath all of it is this: if I start now, in my 30s, what actually happens? Not hypothetically, not in a textbook. What happens to your account, your stress, your options, your life, if you start building wealth right now versus waiting another few years? That's exactly what this video is going to show you. The math, the emotional reality, the obstacles that will hit you, and what's waiting on the other side if you push through them. If this is the kind of breakdown you've been looking for, subscribe before we go any further. We do this regularly, and you'll want to be here for what's coming next. Now let's get into it. First, let's talk about what starting in your 30s actually means in numbers, because the math is the foundation of everything else. You're 30 years old. You start investing $400 a month into a simple S&P 500 index fund. You don't pick stocks. You don't watch charts every morning like it's your second job. You automate $400 on the first of every month and leave it completely alone. Based on the S&P 500's long-term historical average return of roughly 10% annually, by the time you're 65, that $400 a month becomes approximately $1.5 million. You personally contributed around $168,000 over 35 years. The market turned it into $1.5 million. The rest, over $1.3 million, came from compound growth, from money making money year after year while you went to work and lived your life and complained about gas prices. Now let's say you invest $600 a month instead of $400. Same age, same index fund, same 10% average return. By 65, approximately $2.3 million. The difference between $400 and $600 a month, just $200 extra, is $800,000 over 35 years. Not because you were smarter, not because you picked better investments, just because you put in a little more, consistently, for a long time. That's the engine. Now let's talk about what happens when you actually run it, through real life, in your 30s, with all the chaos that comes with it. Year 1. You set up the account. You automate the contribution. The first month, you watch $400 disappear from your checking account and land in an index fund. And you feel almost nothing. The balance after month 1 is $420, including the first return. It looks almost identical to what you put in. You check it again the next day. Still $420. You check it a week later, hoping something dramatic happened. It's $418 because the market dipped slightly. This is the part where most people quietly stop, not dramatically. They don't close the account. They just pause the contribution temporarily because it doesn't feel like it's doing anything. They tell themselves they'll restart next month. Next month becomes March. March becomes the following January. Suddenly, it's been 3 years, and the only thing that's grown is the excuse. Don't be that person. The flat part of the compounding curve is real, and it's the price of admission. Every investor who ever built serious wealth sat through years where the account barely moved. It's not a sign that it's not working, it's just early. Year 1 feels like planting a seed in dry ground. Nothing visible. Keep watering it anyway. Year 3. Something has shifted, quietly, in the background. You've been investing for 36 months without stopping. The market had a rough stretch somewhere in year 2. It dropped 18% in a few months. Your portfolio lost value on paper. You checked the account and felt that specific nausea, The "did I make a mistake" feeling that makes you want to move everything into cash and wait for things to calm down. But you didn't sell. You kept the automation running, and the market recovered. And when it did, the shares you bought during the dip were now worth significantly more. This is the first real test of building wealth in your 30s, and most people don't talk about it enough. The market will drop while you're building. Not once, multiple times. A 10% correction here, a 20% crash there. It doesn't care that you just started. It doesn't care that the timing is bad. The market has no idea you exist, and honestly, that's fine. What happens in those moments is more important than anything else in this video. If you sell, you lock in the loss and miss the recovery. Every major market crash in US history, 2001, 2008, 2020, was eventually followed by new all-time highs. Every single one. The investors who held through the pain came out ahead. The ones who panic sold spent the next few years refreshing financial news at midnight, trying to time their re-entry, and mostly failed. Your 30s will include at least one market drop that feels genuinely terrifying. What happens to your wealth depends entirely on what you do in that moment. Hold. Keep the automation running. Let it keep buying at lower prices. That's not courage. That's just understanding how the game works. Year 5. Portfolio sitting around $30,000. You got a raise last year and bumped contributions to $600 a month. Here's what's changed that the account balance doesn't fully show. Your relationship with money is different now. Not dramatically, not in a way you could explain at a dinner party. But when your car needed $1,200 in repairs last month, you handled it without going into debt. When your company announced layoffs in your department, you felt anxious, but not the kind of existential panic you would have felt 3 years ago. You have a cushion now. Not a large one, but a real one. That quiet shift in how you carry financial stress. That's one of the first things that happens when you start building wealth in your 30s. It shows up before the big numbers do. Year 8. You're 38. Portfolio is somewhere around $90,000 to $110,000, depending on market performance. And here's where your 30s start testing you in a completely different way. Because at 38, life has very strong opinions about where your money should go. And none of those opinions involve your investment account. Maybe you have kids now. And childcare in the US in 2026 costs an average of $1,200 to $2,500 a month, depending on where you live, per child. You didn't misread that, per child. Maybe you bought a house, and the mortgage plus property taxes plus maintenance is eating more than you budgeted, because somehow the water heater knew exactly when to quit. Maybe your parents are getting older, and that's starting to mean something financially too. The 30s are the decade where everyone wants a piece of your income simultaneously. Kids, house, parents, student loans, and that gym membership you keep forgetting to cancel. This is the moment where a lot of people reduce or pause contributions, just temporarily, just until things calm down. Here's the honest truth. Things don't calm down in your 30s. Your expenses grow with your income. If you wait for a peaceful financial window to open before you invest, you'll be waiting until your 50s. And by then, the window is much smaller. The people who build wealth through their 30s are not the ones who had easy decades. They're the ones who kept the automation running even when the budget felt tight. They treated the investment contribution like the mortgage, non-negotiable, automatic, paid first. Life will always have a reason for your money. You have to decide in advance that this one reason gets it first. Year 10. You're 40. Stop here for a second, because this is the moment that changes how you think about everything. Your portfolio is sitting at approximately $120,000 to $140,000. You check the statement and notice something for the first time. Last year, the market's return on your portfolio added more to your balance than your own contributions did. Listen that again. The money you've already invested earned more last year than the new money you put in. This is the compounding curve turning. This is what all those flat, boring, "is this even working?" early years were building toward. The engine is running on its own momentum now. Your contributions still matter. They still feed the machine, but the machine is producing on its own. From this point forward, every year the portfolio grows faster in absolute dollars than the year before. Not because you're doing anything different, just because the base is larger. You at 40, with $130,000 invested, will see that balance grow by roughly $13,000 just from average market returns, even if you never contributed another dollar. But you're still contributing, so it grows faster. This is why starting in your 30s matters, not just for retirement at 65. For this exact moment at 40, when the math starts working for you instead of the other way around. Now let's run the comparison you need to see. You start at 30 and invest $500 a month. By 65, approximately $1.9 million. Your friend starts at 40 and invests $500 a month. By 65, approximately $950,000. Same person, same income, same discipline. 10 years later, the gap is nearly $1 million. And your friend would have to invest almost $1,000 a month starting at 40 just to roughly match what you built investing $500 starting at 30. Double the monthly contribution just to close the gap that a decade of waiting created. That extra $500 a month for 25 years, that's the tax on waiting. It's real, and it compounds in the wrong direction every year you delay. Here's something nobody says clearly enough. Your 30s are not a bad time to start. They're actually one of the strongest starting points available. Not because you have more time than a 22-year-old, you don't, but because you have things a 22-year-old almost never has. You have real income. Bureau of Labor Statistics 2025 data shows the average 22-year-old earns around $38,000 annually. You, in your 30s, likely earn $55,000 to $80,000 or more. That's a completely different amount of investable capital per month. You have emotional stability. Fidelity's 2025 Retirement Savings Assessment found that 30-something investors maintain higher contribution rates and are significantly less likely to panic sell during market downturns than investors in their 20s. The 22-year-old who confidently opened a Robinhood account in 2021 and sold everything in 2022 didn't build wealth. They just got an expensive education. You have clarity. You know what kind of life you actually want. That makes financial decisions sharper and more sustainable. And you still have 30-plus years of compounding ahead. That's not a consolation prize. That's the entire run most wealth is built on. Let's talk about the single most important financial move available to you right now. One that 1 in 4 Americans are quietly ignoring every single paycheck. In 2026, the IRS 401k contribution limit is $23,500. Most U.S. employers match between 3% and 6% of your salary. If you earn $72,000 and your employer matches 5%, that's $3,600 per year deposited directly into your retirement account, just for contributing enough to trigger it. That is a 100% guaranteed return before the market does anything. Zero risk. No research required. Just contribution. If you're currently contributing less than the amount needed to capture the full match, you are handing your employer back money they already set aside for you. Every single paycheck. Imagine your boss walked up to your desk, put $300 in cash in front of you, and said, "This is yours if you want it." And you just looked at it and walked away. That's what not capturing the full match is, except it happens automatically and silently, so you never feel the moment you gave it up. According to Vanguard's 2025 How America Saves report, roughly 1 in 4 employees with access to employer matching leave some or all of it uncaptured. Fix this today. Not this week. Today. Now let's talk about what actually stops people from doing any of this, because it's not information. You found this video. You can find a compound interest calculator in 10 seconds. The tools exist. The access exists. The barrier is your brain. Behavioral economists call it present bias. Your brain is wired to feel right now far more intensely than 30 years from now. The $400 you could invest this month is real and immediate. The $1.5 million in 2060 feels like a rumor. Your future 65-year-old self is essentially a stranger to your current brain. And your brain, frankly, has never been generous with strangers. Daniel Kahneman, Nobel Prize-winning psychologist, prove that people feel the pain of a financial loss about twice as intensely as the pleasure of an equivalent gain. So every time you consider moving $400 to an investment account, your brain registers it as a loss, even though mathematically it's one of the best moves you can make. And here's the funny part. Your brain will convince you the weighting is responsible. I'm just doing research. I'll start when I understand it better. I want to make sure I pick the right fund. That voice sounds like wisdom. It's wearing a very sensible blazer. It is absolutely not wisdom. It's procrastination with good posture. The solution is simple. Remove your brain from the decision entirely. Automate it. Set up the transfer to hit on the same day your paycheck arrives, before you see the money, before your brain can compare it to a weekend trip, a new gadget, or literally anything else. The money moves without your permission, which is precisely the point. When it's automatic, you never experience it as a sacrifice. You just live on what's left. And over 30 years, that one automated transfer does more for your financial future than every piece of investing content you've ever consumed, including this video. One setup, 30 years of uninterrupted compounding. Let's also talk about lifestyle inflation, because this one is sneaky and it gets almost everyone in their 30s. Your income is growing, your friends are upgrading. Suddenly the apartment feels too small, the car feels too old. The vacations need to be a little nicer because you're not 24 anymore and you've earned it. And none of this feels like a decision. It just quietly happens. You look up at 37 and realize your expenses grew in perfect lockstep with your income for 5 straight years. Lifestyle inflation is not a character flaw. It's gravity. It pulls on everyone. The trick isn't to live like a monk. It's to give the raise a job before your lifestyle does. Every time your income goes up, move the difference to your investment account the same week. Raise at work, bump the contribution immediately. Bonus, half to the account, half to your life. You never miss what you never adjusted to having. The people who build the most wealth in their 30s aren't the highest earners. They're the ones who kept the gap between income and spending wide and put that gap to work. Let's also cover where to put the money quickly, because order matters here. First, contribute enough to your 401k to capture the full employer match. Free money first, always. Second, open a Roth IRA if you qualify. In 2026, the contribution limit is $7,000 a year. Income limits are $150,000 for single filers and $236,000 for married filing jointly. A Roth lets your money grow completely tax-free. You contribute after-tax dollars now and owe zero in federal taxes on withdrawal in retirement. Over 30 years, that tax-free compounding can be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's one of the best deals in the US tax code, and a surprisingly large number of people in their 30s aren't using it. Third, go back and max out the 401k beyond the match if you can. That's the sequence. Not complicated, not glamorous, but it captures every advantage the system offers someone in your position. Here's what building wealth in your 30s actually does to your life. Not at 65, but well before then. At 45, you have enough invested that a job loss is uncomfortable, but not catastrophic. You have runway. You can breathe. At 50, you have real options. Not retire tomorrow options, but take a different job options. Say no to the project you hate options. Take 3 months off if you need to options. That kind of freedom doesn't show up on any account statement, but it's real and it changes everything about how you move through your days. At 55, the math gets genuinely emotional. You look at the portfolio and you realize you built that, not through windfalls or inheritance or a lucky stock pick, but through one automated transfer a month, held through market crashes, through tight budgets, through every year that felt like the wrong time to be doing this. Nobody handed it to you. The market helped, but you built it. The question was never whether your 30s are the perfect starting point. They're not. Earlier was better, but earlier is gone. And sitting around mourning it is just a more sophisticated version of doing nothing. The second best time is right now, and right now still produces outcomes that completely change what your life looks like in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. The version of you that starts this month and the version that starts in 2 years will live different lives. Not noticeably different at 35, meaningfully different at 45, completely different at 55. The calculator already showed you the number. The only question left is whether you do something about it today, or come back to this video in 3 years and wish you had.